समझ नहीं आ रहा अपने सैलरी इंक्रीमेंट का क्या करूं।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स के एसआईपी का टॉप अप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
क्या? समझ में नहीं आया।
बेटा इतना क्या सोच रहा है? अपने म्यूचुअल फंड्स का एसआईपी टॉपअप करा ले। दिस इज द राइट टाइम।
अब समझा।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme related documents carefully.
We've all read the stories about Indians who behave badly when they're abroad. We've seen the videos. We read a news item every new day about something. The latest one I read was about Indians being arrested for misbehaving on a Singapore flight. I don't want to talk too much about it this week because we have talked about it before, but I do want to talk about one consequence, or at least a partial consequence, of how we behave. And that consequence is that all of us, you, me, all of us, who actually I would like to think behave quite well when we're abroad, face a little bit of tension. I don't know of any Indian who travels abroad, even people who travel reasonably often like myself. I don't know of any one of us who doesn't feel a degree of trepidation when it comes to applying for a visa. We wonder, will they accept it? How long will it take? Will they send it back, ask for more documents? And that is nothing compared to the fear and trepidation we feel when we're at foreign airports and are about to go up to immigration. We know that our papers are in order. We know that we have visas. We know that we have return tickets, everything they could possibly ask, because if we didn't have them, they wouldn't have given us the visas to begin with. And yet, there's always a degree of trepidation. We feel, will they be suspicious? Will they give us a hard time? Will they turn us away? And if you look at immigration at any airport, especially a Western airport, and you see Indians in front of an immigration officer, there's always a contrast. The immigration officer looks powerful, in control. The Indian looks frightened, like the supplicant. Now, it wasn't supposed to be like this. We believed some years ago that India was now a superpower, that we were so well respected in the rest of the world that when we went to airports, the story is saying that the people have claimed that this has happened. When they went to airports, the immigration officer was so excited to see an Indian that he jumped up and said, "Welcome, my friend. You are from the great country that has Mr. Modi as a leader." Now, perhaps this did happen, but I sure as hell haven't seen it happening. In fact, in my experience, Indians are treated with much more suspicion than ever before. But because we don't expect that, because we think the world respects us in a way in which it didn't respect us before, we have a sense of entitlement and then a sense of indignation and outrage. We are Indians. Why should we be put in this situation? There's not much you can do, because if you go to a Western airport and the guy asks you questions that you don't want to answer and you're rude to him, he'll turn you away. Or at the very least, he'll keep you at the airport for another 4 hours while they go through your papers. So you don't do anything there. So much of that resentment, much of that outrage finds expression in the way we react to visa services. You've probably followed the uproar about VFS. It was like a 2-day, 3-day uproar, and it centered on a routine EU audit, which apparently is done regularly and looked at VFS as it looked at other visa services. We got angry because we said the reason we don't get visas, the reason we have to go through all this humiliation is because of VFS. So, in a sense, I'm no great defender of VFS. I think they're wrong in pushing people for value added services. They've said they'll stop. But in a sense, VFS is like the air hostess on a delayed flight. The air hostess wants to get home as much as you do, but because that's the first person you see when you board a flight that's delayed on the ground, or delayed, in fact, on the tarmac, you take it out on the air hostess. I think that is the position that visa services are in. You can, of course, take it out on the embassies should you want to, but the chances are we won't meet most people at the embassies. And when you ask them, why has it become more difficult to get a visa, they will tell you some of the truth, or at least part of the truth. And part of the truth is that more Indians now than ever before are putting in fake applications. They're saying they're going as students, they say they're going on a visit. Actually, the intention is to emigrate illegally, or there's something wrong with the application. This is something that we can't have. You and I won't do it, but there are a lot of people who do it. According to one estimate, 10 Indians enter the United States every hour, and they enter it illegally. I don't know if that's true, but it's a widely quoted figure. There is no doubt that Indians specialize in getting one kind of visa and staying on for another kind of purpose. For instance, I'll give you one example. The Greek embassy a few years ago had a huge uptake in people applying for tourist visas to go to Greece. Why had Greece become so desirable? Well, it's more complicated than that because Greece issues a Schengen visa. A Schengen visa entitles you to enter most of Europe. It's just one visa, but you can go to Italy, France, Germany, Spain, wherever you want to go. Now, these guys would apply for Greek visas not because they wanted to go to Greece, but because Greek visas and Schengen visas, therefore, were powerful enough to get you to enter Mexico. So you had the spectacle of all these guys arriving at airports in Mexico City and saying they were there as tourists, showing a Schengen visa. And once they got there, they would try and enter the United States across the land border illegally. The Americans busted the scam, blamed the Greeks cracked down. But that's just one example. There's been a problem in Malta, which is like a boat ride away from Italy, with people saying they want to go to Malta, but don't really. They want to go and find jobs in Italy. And even more than Indians, Bangladeshis, the Italians will tell you, are specialists at this kind of fraudulent application. Many people apply to Eastern European countries where it's relatively easy to get into in the hope of being allowed to get into Europe. All this makes people suspicious, and we suffer as a consequence. They ask for all kinds of details. What's worse, apart from this, is that visa agents, people who claim to be experts, encourage people to do things that are guaranteed to get them into trouble. Most people will ask for a bank statement, most embassies, to prove that you have sufficient resources, and they'll ask for a return ticket, proof of a hotel booking. Agents will tell you, get someone to transfer money into your account. You can return it once your visa application has gone through. Or they will tell them, make a hotel booking on the internet. It doesn't matter if you don't intend to stay there. Just show them proof that you have a hotel. Make a bogus booking again on the internet for a return ticket. Tell them you intend to come back. Now, these are scams that are so blatant and so obvious that most visa officers know what they are. And if you do anything as suspicious as that, say suddenly 40 lakhs appears in your account 3 days before your visa appointment, they will get very suspicious. This leads to more scrutiny, to more trouble, and more difficulty in getting visas. That's the part that's our fault. It's also true, I think, that our sense of entitlement blinds us to the reality. We keep talking about the number of countries we can enter visa free, how strong our passport is. In fact, our passport has hovered between 75 to 80 on the list of the world's most powerful passports. It's pretty much on par with Mozambique and Gabon, I think, and Mauritania and various African countries. And there are African countries that are much higher than us. Tanzania is a more powerful passport. Rwanda is a more powerful passport. And yes, we do have visa-free entry to some countries, but they tend to be Nepal, Bangladesh, the Maldives, Sri Lanka, Mauritius, countries that have traditionally encouraged Indians rather than countries that people want to go to for holidays like, say, European countries, America. And even countries that have given us visa-free entry are now rethinking it. The Thais, who need tourists quite desperately and make a lot of money off Indian tourists, have abolished the visa-free entry which they had started. The cabinet reached this decision and is expected to be implemented in a few weeks because there were too many complaints about Indians. It's that whole ugly Indian syndrome. If Indians want to come, they've said they have to get visas on arrival. The days when you could just walk in, present an Indian passport, like, say, a Brit could or an American could present their own passports and just be allowed in, are over. So we are not actually in a good position when it comes to the attitude of foreign countries, embassies, or visa officers towards us. We are treated with suspicion. Now, I accept that some of this is our fault, as I've just said, because of the lies we tell often when to get into foreign countries. But some of it is the fault of the foreign countries. Every foreign embassy will tell you we do our best, but they don't really. If you look at the number of visa officers, the ratio, visa officers to applicants, the chances are you'll find in most embassies the ratio has shifted. There aren't enough visa officers. If you look at absolute numbers at embassies and consulates, the truth is they haven't really returned to pre-COVID levels. They're hiring less people and they're therefore making it more difficult. Why is it more difficult with less people? Well, because it takes longer apart from anything else. And because if there's any element of doubt, they are more inclined to reject rather than give you the benefit. There is another factor that all embassies deny, but which I think is true, and that's racism. You can't pretend that this flood of anti-immigrant and anti-colored immigrant, let's be honest, sentiment all through Europe and in America has not affected those decisions. Visa officers are aware that they're accused of being too lax of allowing in illegal immigrants, so they're super careful. They take the line that we are not tourism officials. If the number of Indians going to our country goes down, it goes down. Our job is to avoid being accused of allowing illegal immigrants in. So that works against us. And is there racism on the part of the officials themselves? In my experience at embassies, no. I mean, whatever we may say, I find they're all perfectly reasonable people, not blinded by any prejudice. Many of them actually love India after they come here. That, unfortunately, is not true of the guys at immigration desks. I have no way of proving this, but I'm pretty sure that there's a degree of racism there. Oddly enough, England, which is the champion at this sort of thing, is actually much better now. In 1968, immigration officers, 37 immigration officers at Heathrow Airport made a public statement, wrote letters to the editor, supporting Enoch Powell, the racist British politician, and complaining about the level of colored immigration to the United Kingdom. I think that's gone. I don't think they're at all racist now. In America, where Indians are always very careful, it's not that they're racist. I think they're just equal opportunity grouches. They just give everybody a tough time. But what's in many countries, I think there are racist. Often it's a question, it's the luck of the draw. It's a question of who you're up in front of. Few countries are uniformly good. I've never had a bad experience in Italy. I've never had a bad experience in France. In fact, France has been one of the best. I've had a bad experience recently in Amsterdam, but that could be because the officer was young and stupid. I've always had bad experiences in Germany, but I'm told that's because the officials are instructed to interrogate sternly any Indian who wants to come there. Maybe it's not the fault of the officials. Maybe they're not racist. Maybe they were, only following orders. But still, it doesn't make it easier for Indians. There is anti-Indian feeling, there's anti-colored people feeling in much of the West, and it's bound to affect the way in which we are treated, no matter what we may say or what they may say. So what happens to us now? I don't know. I mean, I often, when people complain about VFS or immigration or whatever, I'm reminded of what we would now think of the bad old days, which most people are probably not old enough to remember. There was a time before the Schengen area opened up when you had to go from embassy to embassy applying for a visa. If you were applying for a French visa and then, say, went on from Paris to Rome, you need two separate visas, one from the French, one from the Italians. There was no VFS, there were no aggregators. You had to go to the embassy, you had to sit around in the waiting room, wait for them to call you, decide if they want to interview you. It was pretty nightmarish. Compared to that, it's much better now. You just go to, say, VFS, it's one building, you can get most of your Schengen visas done. There are some, like Spain, for instance, which is not part of that process, but you'll still get a Schengen from somebody else if you want to go to Spain. Now, I think that that's an improvement. I concede that there is nervousness. I concede that there's trepidation. But as we've said, part of it is our fault. And part of it is the fault of Western governments. It isn't just racism, it's just lack of funds. If you go to Heathrow, you will find at any given time something like 60% of the immigration desks are unoccupied. It's even worse at JFK, where delays of 4 hours to get to immigration are not uncommon. The truth is that Western countries don't really want to spend money on immigration or on giving visas. They've cut costs, they've reduced numbers, and yes, that makes life more difficult for us. But if you're the kind of person who looks at the bright side of life, look at it this way. 10, 12 years ago, the rupee was what, 60 to the dollar? It's now 90 something, and it looks like it will sink even more. So, with the rupee plummeting, there's an effective barrier to going abroad because we just won't be able to afford it any longer. Airfares are at an all time high. Hotels abroad are out of our reach. So, maybe we should just try and holiday in India. That's what the Prime Minister has recommended. And he's done everything in his power to make that possible.